Good morning, Jumpstart Nation. Glad you could join us today. It's going to be an awesome day. This is pre-recorded. As we told you earlier this week, Rhea and I had several very pressing things we had to get done, but we did not want to miss out on being together and speaking the word together. We are dealing with a mini-series on climate change, the climate hoax. And what does the Bible say about it? And our goal here in these couple of videos, we did one yesterday, we're going to do part 2 today, is to give you the tools, the weapons to diffuse this, to expose it, to debunk it, both with accurate testimony from scientists, men and women that are not in the system, as well as the scriptures, praise God. So stay tuned, Jumpstart Nation. Make sure you like, you share, and make sure you chat it up and respond, love each other, and let's learn the truth that will set us and others free. Here we go. The climate change hoax exposed by the Bible, part 2. Because I believe the Bible's true, and it is, and because I believe that God that wrote it exists, and that he's a creator, and my faith is in God. My faith is not in Mother Earth or Gaia. I'm not worshiping the earth. I believe there is a God that created the earth. Because I believe that God can replenish the earth if he needs to. So number 1, Genesis 8:22 debunks the climate hoax. Hebrews 1:3, Jesus is upholding all things, including the climate, including the temperatures. He's upholding all things by the word of his power. Revelation 4:11 is weapon number 3. Tool number 3, Revelations 4:11, in the climate crisis warfare of demonic ideas. They said in their worship of him, O Lord our God, you are worthy to receive glory and honor and power, because you have created all things, and because of your will they exist and were created. He said all of creation, the climate, the sun, the stars, the temperature, the water, the grass, the sun, the moon, the earth, he said they exist because of your will, which means as long as it is God's will for the earth and the universe to exist, it's going to exist. Whether or not you use too much CO2 or you put spray on deodorant, it's based on his will, not man driving too many gasoline cars around. Now, another one is Colossians 1:17. Oh man, this is a powerful one too. Let me get over here. 1:17. I'm going to read this to you in the Amplified translation. It says that Jesus, Colossians 1:17, he himself, all right, existed before all things, and in him all things consist. That Greek word means are held together, are not blowing up and falling apart, are not collapsing because of too much CO2 usage. All things consist. The Amplified says all things cohere, all right, and are held together. Because of Jesus, all things are held together. Using too much CO2 is not going to cause Jesus to not have enough strength to keep the climate together. Man, this is powerful. So we have Genesis 8:22, we have Hebrews 1:3, we have Revelation 4:11, we have Colossians 1:17, especially. Now, it wasn't the Amplified Classic, it was the Amplified. Check this out. Colossians 1:17. You 1:17. Where is that? It's not the Amplified Classic, but the most recent Amplified. And he himself existed and is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is the controlling, cohesive force of the universe. Jesus is the controlling, cohesive force of the universe. We're not going to die because of some climate change. Jesus has got that well in hand. You'd have to destroy Jesus to destroy the universe. You would have to destroy Jesus to destroy the earth. The earth is never going to be destroyed. It'll be renovated, but the earth is going to be here for eternity. Eternity. All right. Now, last one, Genesis 17:8. God makes a promise to Abraham that shows you that cow gas and gasoline cars, big ones or little ones, all right, are not going to destroy the earth. They're not going to destroy the climate. God made this promise to Abraham way back in the day in Genesis 17:8. He said, "And to you and your future offspring, I will give the land where you are residing, all the land of Canaan, as an eternal possession, and I will be their God." He said, Abraham, I'm going to give the land of Canaan, the Gaza Strip, everything that Hamas is fighting over. I'm going to give the land of Canaan. I'm going to give all of that to you and your descendants, the Israelites, for an eternal possession. That means the earth is here forever. The earth is here for eternity. Praise God. And we're going to live on it. And Abraham and his born again Jewish descendants, including us, are going to be living on planet Earth, because if there's an eternal Canaan land, an eternal natural Israel and Jerusalem, then there is an eternal globe on which the Canaan land exists. Somebody says, I thought God was going to burn up the earth and destroy it and make a brand new one. Well, it's possible if you look at some of this in 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief. On that day, the heavens will pass away with a loud noise. The elements will burn and be dissolved, and the earth and the works on it will be disclosed. It'll be dissolved. It'll be melted. It doesn't say it'll go away, but it's like when you heat up wax and it becomes dissolved, but then and when it cools down, it comes back together. It's like metal. When you heat metal or steel, it becomes dissolved into almost a liquid form, but when it cools, it hardens again in a brand new, cleaned up shape. When you refine gold, you dissolve it, you melt it down to liquid form, and it gets rid of all the impurities. And then when it hardens back as a pure piece of gold with no impurities. And so several scholars are indicating that the heavens will pass away. We won't need the heavens because heaven will come to earth. Jesus said, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God's plan is to make it. See, we think that God's plan is to get us into heaven for eternity. No, God's plan is to get himself on earth for eternity. We won't need heavens. We'll have it all right here on planet Earth, which was the center of God's focus to begin with. So the heavens will pass away, but it doesn't say that the earth will pass away. It says it'll be dissolved. Let's say the elements will burn and be dissolved. The elements will burn and be dissolved. All right. And the works be dissolved, and the earth and the works on it will be disclosed. The evil things that had been done on the earth are going to be exposed. And there's going to be a brand new heaven and a brand new earth. Now watch what he says. Since all these things are to be destroyed in this way, it is clear what sort of people you should be in holy conduct and godliness, as you wait for and earnestly desire the coming of the day of God. The heavens will be on fire and be dissolved because of it. The elements will melt with heat. It didn't say they'll go away. It says the elements, earth, will melt with heat. All right. You know, you could melt silver, but that doesn't mean the silver went away. It means that when the heat's taken away, it rehardens in a purified form. Wow. He said, but based on his promise, we wait for the new heavens and a new earth. God's going to give us a new heavens. All right. I don't know what that's going to look like. It'll be probably places we can live and travel, but God himself will bring heaven to earth. He will live on earth with us. All right. So there'll be a new heavens and a new earth, where righteousness will dwell. So none of this global warming is going to happen until God decides to melt it. When God decides to melt it with fervent heat, you talk about global warming, brother. That's going to be some serious global warming. I want to just, I want to take a few minutes and just hit one more video of a professor that was basically bullied at the University of Alabama because of his stand on the climate crisis. Check this out.
The science says climate change is tricky. There's a disconnect between what the science says and what the narrative in the mainstream media is. My name is Matthew Wailiki, and this is my story. I am a former faculty member in the Department of Geological Sciences at the University of Alabama. I have a doctorate in geology and earth science, and I am the author of Irrational Fear Substack. I was born in southern Poland in a town called Wrocław.
You want to take a note of that? I have a blog on substack.com, Irrational Fear. Type in substack.com, click it, and then type in Irrational Fear and equip yourself with scientific tools so that your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren will know the truth. Check it out, though.
At a time when Poland was under the sphere of the influence of the Soviet Union and a communist government, and my parents made the decision to immigrate to Chicago, like all good Polish people do. That's the Ellis Island for Polish people, is Chicago. And then eventually I grew up in Fresno, California, where we received political asylum and eventually citizenship. I grew up on a college campus, Cal State University, Fresno. My father was a faculty member there at the School of Business. My mother was in information technology and staff. I would ride my scooter around campus after school every day. It was something that I fell in love with. It was a place where there was these warriors that battled in the playing field of ideas, and then they would go and have dinner together, and they would chat and be friendly, and it was just this beautiful place of just intellectual discussion. So I pretty much decided I was going to be an academic when I was 10 or 12. I was always intrigued by science. My original degree is biochemistry and cellular biology. I was what was called a geochronologist, geo being rock, chronology being kind of the age of. I received my PhD from the Department of Earth, Planetary, and Space Sciences at UCLA. And then I was offered a tenure-track position at the Department of Geological Sciences at the University of Alabama. Taking that faculty position in Alabama was my dream. And so I was absolutely excited. I was a little nervous moving our family from California to Alabama. That's a pretty big move, but we were excited. It was definitely something I wanted to do. But I noticed that the campus that I grew up on and the one that my father and I would talk about was different. College campuses have always been meritocracies. We have GPAs, we give grades, and there was a shift from performance and ability to what I would say are immutable characteristics, meaning what you look like, or maybe your background or your race. And those are things that students don't have any control over. And so there was this disconnect from what I remembered, where it was this competition of ideas and everybody was on an equal playing field. And it was, if your idea was better than your competitor's idea, then your ideas would win. And now it seemed that the ideas didn't matter as much as characteristics of the students to appease funding agencies or whatever it was. One of the things they did was they got rid of the GRE. This is the graduate requirement exam. So in the name of equity, they removed an entrance exam. And so I was now left with trying to understand someone's life story from an essay without having any standardized metric to compare them to.
So now, instead of a student being allowed to come to a university based on their merit, based on are they even intellectually, academically ready to go to college, now it's based on diversity, equity, inclusion. It's based on what category you're in, what skin color, what sexual preference, what gender. It's based on that kind of thing, economic, socioeconomic status, rather than on the academic ability of the student. Man, you talk about a subtle form of totalitarianism and Marxism, you're getting a taste of it right now.
So I would bring this up in faculty meetings, and it was clear that they were checking a box. There were certain things that we couldn't discuss in academia. In earth sciences, if you speak about climate change, that is one of these taboo subjects. And climate change is tricky. There's a disconnect between what the science says and what the narrative in the mainstream media is. And what certain, what I would call activist scientists have been kind of pushing. The narrative in the media is doing so much damage to mental health. Climate anxiety is probably the #1 anxiety issue for the college students that I talk to. And the science does not support that fear. I think that that fear is irrational. Climate is a very convenient way for governments and institutions to get involved in nearly every aspect of a citizen's life.
Now, did you hear that? He said the #1 fear of most college students is climate change. They're afraid. They're fearful. They're perishing because of a lack of knowledge of Genesis 8:22, Hebrews 1:3, Revelation 4:11, Colossians 1:17, and Genesis 17:8. They're ignorant, and Satan's taking advantage of them through their ignorance. I want you to hear the rest of this. Worth your time to hear what this university did to this honest doctor, this PhD.
And if you are basing your life decisions, like whether or not to have children, whether or not to raise a family, whether or not to make sacrifices today, such that maybe in a decade or not, you're going to be in a better position. If you think that the planet is going to end, you don't make those sacrifices.
Okay, they're being told that their life's not going to last more than 10 years. The planet's not going to end. So they don't have anything to lose. And when you get a generation of children, of people, of college students, high school students, into a place of desperation where there's nothing to lose because we're going to die anyway, you can then convince them to rebel against the ones that are trying to destroy them. You can get them in what they think is a righteous cause. They're not going to have kids because the kids are going to die. They're not going to get married because the marriage is not going to last. It's 10 years were gone. They're not going to invest. They're not going to try to get a degree or whatever and qualify themselves to work because we might as well eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we die. So let's go rebel. I'm telling you, climate change is bigger of a deal. It's really bigger of a deal than we think. And that's what the Spirit of God spoke to me prophetically, is for me to discuss, just like codependency. He whispered in my heart, climate change. And I said, really? That's a side issue, isn't it? Man, was I ever not right. Listen on. We're almost finished. Listen on. It's worth your time.
I definitely love the earth, and humans have an influence on the climate and on their environment, and we should minimize that. But the disconnect that our small policy changes today will have some dramatic impact on future temperatures or weather in general is untrue. But if you speak out against it, you're essentially a pariah in this community. I gave a 2-day lecture in my introductory geology class about kind of climate realism is what I called it. The students were amazingly refreshed to hear that the planet wasn't going to end in 10 or 12 years. But faculty members were a little uncomfortable with it. If you push out...
Incidentally, I just now looked this up. Do you know what a pariah, when someone is called a pariah, do you know what that word means? Pariah means a person who is avoided or not accepted by a social group, especially because he or she is not liked, respected, or trusted. It's an outcast. All right. Historically, a pariah, historical, is a member of the low caste in southern India. If you argue against the climate hoax, they look at you and talk to you and treat you like you are the scum. You are the ignorant, Bible-clinging scum of the earth. And if you're a professor who came out of a totalitarian government in Poland and you stand up against the climate change hoax, you are considered the lowest of the low class. You're a pariah. That's what that means.
Out scientists that disagree with your narrative, this isn't an open discussion. This isn't about finding the truth. This is about silencing those that disagree with you such that you can continue to push the narrative that you're pushing. I started to publish a little bit more on social media, and the moment that those stories gained any traction, faculty members in the University of Alabama were making posts that I was committing violence, that I was putting their jobs and their safety in jeopardy because I was asking questions. So I decided to leave during COVID. It just wasn't that dream job that I had been thinking about my entire life. It wasn't this beautiful place of the exchange of ideas that I wanted it to be. I don't think I would have been able to stay.
Did you hear this? If they can't beat the argument, they attack the person. It's called a fallacy. It's a logical fallacy. I can't win the argument on thinking, so I'm going to attack the man. That is a classic fallacy. It's a fallacial argument that people use. If I can't beat your ideas, I will destroy your reputation. And this guy walked away from a lifelong career because of it. They murdered his reputation.
If I chose to stay, I doubt that I would have been awarded tenure if I chose to stay because I had been so vocal. The data is very clear. There is no metric that we can call the current state of the climate a crisis or an emergency or a breakdown. They're trying to elicit fear. When people are afraid, they are most vulnerable to changing their behaviors.
Don't forget that.
And growing up in a household that was very aware of some of the mistakes of a communist type of government, centralized planning, the removal of the free exchange of ideas, that makes me more vocal because I see that we're making the same mistakes that my parents always told me we should never go down this road. The lack of tolerance for ideas, what I call illiberalism, the idea that if you question certain aspects of the government or certain ideologies, that no longer were you a good citizen. But if you haven't lived it, you don't know that these are mistakes. Science is supposed to be about the discovery of the truth. And the most important aspect of that is the ability to discuss. I want young people to be hopeful for their future. We should realize that there's going to be challenges. Climate will change, but that shouldn't be a reason to think that your future isn't hopeful.
Wow, that's an amazing, absolutely amazing story. Praise God. And I'm glad that I took the time to share it with you, that you took the time to listen to it. These 5 verses, Genesis 8:22, Hebrews 1:3, especially the Amplified Classic, Revelation 4:11, Colossians 1:17, the Newer Amplified, Genesis 17:8, that's just 5 verses, are the truth that you need to equip yourself with. We've got to start speaking out against these evil strongholds that have taken hold of our kids. It's the number one fear of the college kids. And we've got to come both with biblical answers, and we've got to equip ourselves. This very video is a training video for you, Jumpstart Nation. I'm handing you some equipment that you can equip yourself with. You can even sit down with your family and go over this Jumpstart with them and talk about it and discuss it. Look up the scriptures together and inform yourself so we can begin to dismantle these lies one lie at a time. You're going to be treated like a pariah by many. You're going to be considered unintelligent, ignorant, stupid. They're going to try to shame you into not speaking up. And I'm telling you, on behalf of Jumpstart Nation, I'm handing you some weapons whereby you can really make a difference in the lives of people. Say this out loud. I know the truth, and the truth has set me free. I'm going to share the truth, and the truth is going to set others free. Say this out loud. I am as bold as a lion. I will stand my ground. I will speak the truth in the name of Jesus. God bless you guys. Make sure you share this, subscribe, hit the bell, make sure it's on all. That way, as soon as I bring up if you through YouTube, I bring up a video, it's right there. You get it. I get a crazy idea like this, a God anointed idea, climate change. And that's just like what he said a couple of years ago about codependency. I went, huh? I don't know anything about codependency. I didn't know a whole lot about climate change. I just believed what I believe. But the Lord said, really? Do you care about other people? God bless you guys. And we will see you tomorrow